All right, guys, today what we're going to be showing is the 60,000 mile maintenance interval on the GM Ecotec 1.4 liter turbocharged I4 engine. So most of that is about the ignition system. We're going to remove this decorative cover. It just snaps off. There's 2 snaps here and 2 snaps here. Hold on to these pins in these positions. And then we're going to remove the Torx bolts that hold in the ignition coil pack. I believe those would be a let's see, I want to make sure we got the exact size here. Yeah, that's going to be a T30 to remove that. I believe this is probably the first time this particular engine has had this maintenance performed. It wasn't done at the correct interval. Once we remove these 2 guys, then we're going to remove the coil pack from the spark plugs. Now, just to pull it up, you don't have to necessarily disconnect it. If you do need to disconnect it, there's this purple, and sometimes it's orange and sometimes it's red. This is a little lock pin that you push down, pull back, and that'll let you pull this push this down and disconnect the wiring harness. But for what we're doing, we don't need to do that because we just want to be able to get access. To get access, grab it by the pack, don't grab it by the connector, and just wiggle it out. All right, and we can see here what we're looking for is any damage to these boots. We got a little bit of rust going on here that we'll want to inspect a little bit. And then we can see here, this particular one's got a lot of corrosion, and in fact the boot stayed inside. It's really in there, so I'm going to have to get a pair of long nose pliers to pull that out. And then there's our spark plugs. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get some compressed air to blow out any debris before we go to remove any of these plugs. And then we're going to get a long nose pair of pliers, and we're going to gently remove this boot. All right, guys, I'm going to take just a flat kind of screw pair of pliers that don't have any teeth. See if we can get this boot out of here. Yeah, didn't think so. She's wedged in there really good. As it turns out, right, I'm not too concerned about salvaging this boot because the corrosion that we see on this spring is pretty bad. Let me show you some more on that before we get into pulling that out. So if we take a look inside here, see how this guy's nice and shiny in there? That's how all these springs are supposed to appear, right? This one's kind of twisted up, but if we get him out, you can see there's a little bit of tarnishing on that one. That's not too bad. This one also has got some tarnishing, but if we get him out where he's supposed to be, he's not too bad, right? But this guy here is really bad. He's really corroded up. So we're not getting a good connection. That may explain why occasionally this engine will get like a knocking. It hasn't thrown any codes yet, but again, that's why you do this kind of maintenance. So when you go in here to change the spark plugs, you want to inspect all these. Now, most of the time, there's no problem. You're just going to make sure that these springs look nice. They should look like this guy. But as long as they don't look any worse than this guy, you're probably okay. In this case, we're going to have to replace this coil pack because this is too badly corroded. That's part of the inspection that you do when you do this kind of maintenance. So that this spring will fall out, that's okay. That would give you a way to clean it if you wanted to. In the previous picture, what we noticed was this lock was actually already out part way. So it should be in that lock position, but this whole piece can come out and we can replace it. And we'll show replacing that once we get through with blowing out the dirt. So now we're going to blow these guys out. To get these plugs out, you're going to use a 5/8 inch spark plug socket. And a spark plug socket has a little rubber grommet in there to hold on to the spark plug when it comes out. Now, I'm not going to necessarily show you removing all of them, but we'll take the first one out to show you what we've got. What that grommet does is it holds onto these plugs. So this engine got pulled in here, so it's still a little warm. Well, we've got an AC Delco 41121 installed in here from the factory. If you have an older one of these Ecotec 1.4s, you'll actually find that the factory plug was an NGK, and that's just how it was originally from the factory. So the replacement plugs that we're going to be using are still those 41121s. And you'll notice this is the new current AC Delco packaging for the GM parts, 12681, 656. At the time I'm doing this video, they got a good rebate going. You want to watch for that when you get these. But there will be 4 of them in the box. And these particular ones are made in Japan. They probably are made by NGK. You know, who knows? They're factory gapped, and the specification on the gap is from 0.6 to 0.7 millimeters. So that runs somewhere around 0.026 and a little bit up from that. But here we have our same 41121s. So we're not going to have to gap these. We'll be able to install them as is. We're going to go ahead and install these 3 plugs. We're going to come back and finish getting this boot out, install this 4th plug, and I'll show you putting in the new coil pack. All right, guys, we've got these 3 plugs done. We're going to come back here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to spray a little bit of all-purpose silicone spray in here. And what I'm trying to do is the rubber boot here is adhered itself to the ceramic on the plug, is what I suspect. I don't want it to break off in there. We're going to be replacing this ignition coil pack because of the corrosion we saw. But we still want to try and pull this out intact if we can. Just going to work this guy around. Hopefully he'll let go. If he doesn't, we'll just have to tear him apart. Looks like what I'm going to have to do so that we can get the plug out. Again, this isn't a normal situation to have, so the fact that we're having this is just another indication that we've got to do more than just change out spark plugs here on this particular guy. All right. So yeah, we've got a lot of it binding up down here. There it goes. We finally let go of it. All right, so you can see there's a lot of corrosion on the plug itself. And then if we take a look inside the boot, we can see there's a lot of corrosion in here as well. So definitely all part of what was going on, and we obviously caught it before it got too far. So we're going to go ahead and give this guy a blowout. Go ahead and pull this one, the last plug. We'll take a look at these plugs after we get them all out. Show you some things to watch for. All right, so yeah, there's a lot of corrosion on this particular plug as well as the corrosion on the tip. So eventually, if we had not come in here and did our regularly scheduled maintenance, eventually we would have gotten to a situation where that particular plug would have started misfiring, and we would have gotten a check engine light. We would have had a code to chase to go deal with that. Let's put in our last plug. So a lot of corrosion sitting around the outside edges there. Kind of hand tighten this guy in, and then what I'll do is, rather than just using the hand canned air, come in here and give it a couple of blasts of compressed air from the compressor as well. Now what we can also do at this point is we can take our torque wrench and torque these guys down. These plugs get torqued to 18 foot-pounds. And remember, you got to torque these. You don't want to go too far because it's steel going into an aluminum head. That's all you want to do. All right, so we'll go here and torque these, and we'll come back and blow this stuff out and get ready to put the new coil pack on. All right, guys, we've got these cleaned out. You can see we've got the dust particles that were sitting in this bore, and we've also cleaned the others out. You got to remember, this is an aluminum head, so that rust is not on the head from the aluminum. It's left over from the spark plug and drop down there. What you can do is you can put some cleaner on the end of a Q-tip. This is one thing you can do. You can just kind of come in here with a pair of very long nose pliers and just clean around there. Get all that broken up, and then you come in with compressed air and blow it right out. All right, so now we've got that done. The next thing we're going to be doing is putting on a new coil pack because of this problem. And the part number on that is GM 251-98623, and that's a D521C from AC Delco. And again, this is kind of like in the new packaging that they're doing, stop all these Chinese counterfeiters, right? So if it's not got this kind of sealed tape, it's probably fake. Okay. It's starting to rain out here, guys, so bear with me, right? So now we've got this all pre-lubed up with a form of dielectric grease. It's all ready to go in and be installed. There's nothing you need to do. So that's what we're going to do now. We're just going to get this onto each of the plugs. Push it into position. We're going to reconnect our harness, push our lock back in. We're going to get our 2 torque screws, reinstall them, and then we're going to retorque it down. And then what I'll do is I'll come over and show you a little bit closer on the spark plug inspection. I'm going to put these in by hand, just snug them up, and then we're going to torque them to 71 inch-pounds. 71 inch-pounds. And again, we're going into aluminum here, so it's a very lightweight specification. All right, let's just get that torque done, and then we'll go take a look at those plugs, and we'll take a closer look at that coil pack that failed. And most importantly, we'll get out of the rain. That's 1. That's 2. Then you just put your cover on and you're done. Let's go take a look at the parts that failed. All right, guys, let's take a look at these plugs, right? So here's our guy that was at the end that was all rusty. And here's our guy at the far end that's in pretty good shape still. Again, these are all made in Japan, just like the ones that we replaced it with. So these are very high quality plugs. So there's not a problem with the plugs itself, right? So when you take these plugs, you're looking at the tips here. If you got a lot of black, oily substance, right, that would tell you that you got a problem because that would be oil burning. Another problem would be a lot of white, flaky material on it. That would be another problem that the service manual can detail what might be the cause of that. These actually look fine on the electrode tips. It's the damage that we see on the housing of the plug, just heavily corroded on this one particular one. And that is likely whatever resulted in damaging the coil pack got down here moisture-wise and attacked the plug as well. So in some sense, we're lucky we didn't have a fight getting it out. If it had been an iron head, we probably would have had more trouble getting it out than an aluminum head. Let's take a look at the coil pack. All right, guys, so this is just a shot of the service manual. You know, it got wet when the rain started, but the end of those plugs, brown to grayish tan with small amounts of white powdery deposits. That's all normal combustion byproducts. With the carbon foul, you're going to have dry, fluffy black carbon or soot. There's a bunch of different problems that can cause that. There's just a long list, right? But so black is bad. And then deposit fouling, where you've actually got wet oil or coolant even if you've got a leak that is appearing on the end electrode. Those are all the different things you're trying to inspect for. I also mentioned earlier in the video that the earlier versions of this engine used NGK plugs. I happened to change out a 2012 Cruze ECO that had these in the 1.4 liter Ecotec. So that's what actually got installed by the factory. It was the first time I changed them out, and I replaced them with the same plugs that we saw today. And again, just taking another close look at our failed coil pack. You can see if you zoom in here, the corrosion on here is extensive. So we were just weeks, months away from starting to throw misfire codes on this particular cylinder here. So it was a good call to replace that. Originally went in just expecting to show you guys spark plug replacement, and I wouldn't have normally even just filmed that, but because I anticipated this problem because of the knocking that the engine had, it turned out that it's a good reason to show why every 60,000 miles it's worthwhile to do these kind of inspections. And I'll post up here on the top corner of the video the inspection recommendation of GM. Unfortunately, these 1.4 liters, they're not the same duration as the 1.8 liters in terms of when you're supposed to do this kind of maintenance. And GM didn't post it in the owner's manuals until 2013. So a lot of 2011 and 2012 owners don't even realize they need to cycle these things out a lot faster than the 1.8 liter. So I'll put that up there so you can have it. If you have questions and comments, go ahead and leave them below. I'll try to help you out. If you found this video useful, go ahead and hit that like button. Helps us out with discovery on YouTube for other folks to find the video. And as always, thanks for watching.